BBC News with Sue Montgomery. The Sudanese army and its rival, the Rapid Support Forces, have said they are prepared to extend a 3-day truce, which has now expired. The ceasefire had only been partly effective, with heavy fighting taking place in parts of the capital Khartoum. Our Africa regional editor Will Ross reports.
The two sides may have agreed to extend the ceasefire, but so far it's looked as though a desire to gain the upper hand in this war has outweighed any appetite for peace. Throughout Thursday, there were bombs and gunfire in parts of Khartoum. Neighbouring South Sudan has offered to host talks between representatives of the army and the rival Rapid Support Forces. The US and others are trying to persuade the two generals to stop destroying the country. But they fear losing power in Sudan because on both sides there are men who could end up at the International Criminal Court for war crimes committed in Darfur almost 20 years ago.
The United States has imposed sanctions on Russia's domestic security service, the FSB. It said the agency, the successor of the Soviet KGB, was guilty of hostage-taking. Similar sanctions were imposed on the Iranian Revolutionary Guards. More details from Barbara Platt-Usher.
This is the first time the U.S. is imposing sanctions for the wrongful detention of Americans. Administration officials said it was part of a broader effort to deal with the practice of using U.S. citizens as political bargaining chips. That's what they've accused Russia and Iran of doing. The sanctions target Russia's Domestic Security Service, the FSB, as well as the intelligence unit of Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, including 4 of its senior commanders. Some are already sanctioned for other reasons, but the officials said it was important to show there were consequences for this behavior, and more sanctions would be coming.
The former U.S. Vice President Mike Pence has appeared before a grand jury investigating Donald Trump's role in efforts to overturn the result of the 2020 election. Reports say that Mr. Pence was in the Washington courtroom for more than 7 hours. It's not known what testimony he provided, but commentators say he is a key witness, given the pressure put on him by Mr. Trump to refuse to certify the election result. The army in Burkina Faso says that 33 soldiers have been killed in an attack on a military post by Islamist militants. Here's David Bamford.
This latest attack, blamed on Islamist insurgents, is the second in just over a week in which dozens of soldiers have been reported killed. In the meantime, the military-led government in Ouagadougou spoke for the first time on Thursday about last week's killing of over 100 civilians by what local officials described as men in military uniform. The government has not said whether the attack on the northwestern village of Kama was carried out by the army, but it called for a full investigation.
World News from the BBC. Brazil has said it will continue farming according to its own regulations, despite a European Union law banning the import of products linked to deforestation. The country's Vice President, Geraldo Alckmin, said land grabbers, not farmers, were responsible for the increasing deforestation in the Amazon. The surging deforestation has sparked international concern and generated resistance to trade with Brazil in European countries. The International High Representative in Bosnia and Herzegovina has intervened to end a deadlock over the formation of a government in the non-Serb majority region known as the Federation. The decision means the government will be made up of only Croat and Serb members, but will exclude the largest Bosniak Muslim party. Guy Deloney reports.
Christian Schmidt hasn't been shy about using his extraordinary powers since he became the High Representative 2 years ago. He'd warned politicians in Bosnia's Federation region that he'd step in if they couldn't agree on a new government. Now he's made good on that promise. The Croat president and Serb vice president had already agreed on the composition of the cabinet, but they'd been blocked by the Bosniak vice president. Mr. Schmidt's decree means the ministers they chose are hereby deemed appointed.
The Bosniak Vice President, Refik Lendo, described Mr. Schmidt's intervention as rude. Campaigners in Morocco say a former minister is among 8 people arrested on corruption charges. Lawyers acting for the Moroccan Association for the Protection of Public Property say Mohamed Moubdi is suspected of embezzlement, squandering of public funds and influence peddling. Spain has recorded its highest ever temperature for April, hitting 38.8 degrees Celsius on Thursday. The record figure was reached in Cordoba Airport in southern Spain. BBC News.